Oh, should we
And
take this banner off?
we are officially, yes, live.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Write With Us Live.
Should we take this banner off?
My name is Alan. I go as Micro and Scribble on the internet, and we have Ariana right here with us.
Hi, I'm Ariana. I go by Ariana the Poet on every social media that you can find us on. I will be the lead facilitator of today's workshop, and Alan will be doing tech support. Feel free to, we're just starting to see everybody's comments pop up in the chat. Please, if you're with us, say hi, let us know where you're tuning in from. Just drop it in the chat. We would love to know where everybody's coming from today. And we're super excited to get into things. Alan, do you have anything to add before I get into stuff?
Yes, if you are not following us on Instagram, please follow us at Write With Us Live, because that is where I will be sending you a link if you want to come live with us, the sharing portion. So please make sure that you're like looking at your DMs. If you kind of like are messaging us, I'll be looking at the DMs. But in the time being, like, take care of yourselves and get ready for this fantastic workshop. And also, these workshops are free. They happen every Sunday at exactly this time. So, yeah.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah, what do I want to add? It's nice to see everybody. Thank you so much for choosing to spend this part of your Sunday with us. We're really excited to just have some low stakes writing time. Before we get into workshop things, I just wanted to go over a few small things that will be helpful for you to know about today's workshop. As Alan mentioned, if you follow us on Instagram, that's where you can find all the updates about this workshop series. And additionally, you might have seen on our Instagram that we've started sharing poems that people have written during workshops. So if you share, hi Maritza, hi from Austin. I bet it's really hot over there right now. I hope you have AC. Yes, if you send us via DM anything that you write during the writing workshops, we would love to share it and post it on our Instagram. So we haven't had a lot of people share writing with us, but we would very much love to see what you wrote and to share it with folks if you are interested in that. So just send us a DM at Write With Us Live. Okay, that's about sharing. What else? There is a Google Doc for today's workshop. You can find the link to that in the YouTube description box right below the video. You can just click on the link and follow along. If you don't want to or you can't, I'll be sharing my screen, so you'll still be able to see what's on the Google Doc. That's just if you want to follow along with us for today. And lastly, if you are, and Alan just dropped the link to the Google Docs in the live chat on YouTube, so you can access it there as well. And I was going to say, if you are liking the workshop series so far, it's been helpful for you, Alan and I, this is a totally free open access workshop series. And so we appreciate any donations that folks are able to send us. And this is our Venmo and Cash App information. You can find us there. Otherwise, let's get right into it. Yeah. Okay. So today's workshop is structured a little bit differently than the last two that we've done. There will actually be multiple chances to share work that you generate in today's workshop. Also, the last two workshops have been focused around a specific theme. And today's workshop is a little looser, still structured. We'll still be here to guide you through the writing prompts, and if discussion comes from that, we'll be here for that as well. But mostly I wanted to think about creating a space where if you have something that you already want to write about, or something that's been on your mind that you just haven't been able to find an entry point into, that's really what today's workshop is for. I know a lot of folks who are already identifying as artists and writers. You might have a project that you're working on that's maybe centered around one or two or several major themes. And so maybe today is about writing into that, into that project, into those themes that you're already bringing with you into the space. So yeah, so today's, it's a little more open-ended as well for today. What else? Yeah. And as always, if there are any questions that you have related to the workshop, questions about the writing prompts, or tech support or accessibility needs that you might have that are not being met, please feel free to let us know in the chat, and we will do our best to accommodate everything and answer your questions. I want to go ahead and get started. So you know we love to share some poems from writers that we enjoy, and today is no different. I want to start by telling you about this book. It is kind of a new book. It came out this year. It's called Amphibian by Jessica Laney. And I think this is an amazing book of poetry. I'm trying to get the whole thing in the frame without it being cut off. I think this is an amazing, incredible book of poetry. And every time I read it, it reminds me about the possibilities of poetry, all the different things that it can do. So just to give you a sense of what some of the poems look like, there are sort of like poems, structures of poems you may have seen before, but this book has a lot of concrete poems, and concrete poems are poems that are, they are in the shape of something. So to give you an example, there's a poem here that's in a swirl, and you can read the whole thing. That is so cool to me. And the shape of the poem adds another layer of meaning to what the poem is actually about. So this book explores a lot the feeling of grief, the experience of grief, particularly grief caused by the violences of men, from the perspective of a Black woman. And so the book is not necessarily easy to read because of a lot of the hard truths, I think, that are present in the work and in the experiences that are being described. So in this poem, for example, that's in kind of this swirl, almost this like dizzying kind of swirl. There's a section of the book where the writer sort of describes like the experience of moving through grief as this kind of other world, as this kind of like fantastical world where like surreal things happen, and she compares that to like Alice in Wonderland. So Alice from Wonderland appears as a guide through the writer's grief. So that's why there's a poem that's in a spiral like this, because that's how grief felt like in this moment of writing this poem. So I don't know about you, but that's super cool to me, and I didn't know that you could write a poem like that. And so yeah, there are poems that are in wild shapes. There's one in the shape of a heart, which like, how do you even do that? I don't know. But it makes me really excited to share stuff from this book with y'all. And I definitely think that if that's something you're interested in, you should pick it up. Like here's one in the shape of an ear. Yeah, it's just wild to me. So in addition to the writing being amazing, right? It's not just about the shape of the poems. But that being said, I want to start off today's workshop by reading 3 poems from this book. Our last few workshops, we've sort of given like lead up exercises before you start writing. And with today's workshop, I'm going to ask you to just do a lot of writing. Excuse me. So I wanted to offer something to sort of get you in a creative headspace before we go into the free writing exercises. So I mentioned that this book is really like a big exploration of grief. And I am very excited about the poems and the writing in this. And I definitely feel like it's not a book that you can read all in one sitting, or you shouldn't read it all in one sitting because of the things that it's talking about. Thank you, Alan. Technology continues to amaze me. This is the cover of it, Amphibian. The author, Jessica Laney, who's a good friend of mine, she actually designed the cover herself, which is super cool to me. I also didn't know you could do that. So shout out to, breaking boundaries and traditions. I'm going to read, there's a series of poems in the book that is named after Jessica's grandmother, Ida May. So there are 3 poems in that series, and I'm going to read 2 of them and then an additional poem, and then we'll get into the free writing exercises. So just a heads up that the first poem I read is going to be about Jessica attending her grandmother's funeral. So just a heads up for that. If that feels like something you can't hear right now, you can put us on mute, come back, and we'll let you know when that poem's over. Okay. And like I said, this book is exploring grief caused by the violences of men. And this poem explores a little bit of that as well. Okay. Ida May 2. This is the church where you were married, the walls tall and whitewashed, everything with prim blue trim, palm trees outside applauding. I never saw your wedding photos. 15 years ago, my mother ran from this island with me in tow. I returned for the occasion of your death. At the front of the church, your photo in a plastic frame leans against your ashes in a plastic bag. Girded by my uncles, I break like a jar of palm oil. Uncle Buca, almost 100, twists his hands around my hand. My Uncle Lopez, his arm around me, pats my shoulder as rage rocks his body. Uncle Lopez is the man who loved you so poorly, you did not know that the next man would kill you. Anything was better than Uncle Lopez. Still, the man you died under spent enough of your money that you were burned, not buried. People testified to your generosity, which they never returned. Your sister Anne, while still in the sanctuary, asks for the money she is owed for burning you. She shames my mother for not attending. White tourists poke their heads into the repast to ask what we are celebrating, although we are all dressed in black. I am a shard of lifeboat, splintering from the ship of family. Once I light my lantern, after they throw you into the ocean, I will never speak to any of them again. My first memory, always, of playing at the pink and red roses you coaxed from the dirt and tropical heat on 11th Avenue, you keeping me like a mother, brushing my hair, us looking each other in the green eyes we share. I learned memory is cruel and mostly changes events so someone can remember themselves a certain way, in a way that helps them survive themselves. That's poem number 1. I always feel like I need to take a breath after reading poems from this book. I think too, I think for those of us who come from like performance poetry backgrounds, and for me, I came up doing poetry slam, I feel like I have a tendency to want to resolve things at the end of my poems and sort of come to like this momentous like conclusion and resolution at the end of a poem. And I feel like a lot of the poems in this book actively resist doing that. Which is just, it's helpful for me to read about, to remember that if things are not actually resolved, you don't have to resolve them at the end of the poem. Okay, this is the next poem in the Ida May series. So this is Ida May 3, The Girl. You, the girl, you took the rose blistering with blushing yellow and pink with the cold. I wonder if you ever thought of the bitter medicine of the stem in your tight, eager palm, the stigmata of almost every other girl, and the things she must, and the things she will never, the tart cut of striped watermelon candy in the cheek, the body ungrateful for what the damn rose must have meant, coy nature, coaxed from uncolorful conditions, begging always for a hand. Did you know that it, like you, would be a pretty whirl rent from the dirt for a shirt lapel for coiffure, to make something else beautiful with your beauty? I know enough to know you said yes to ease, yes to waste, not yes to please, expectations polished to look like good. The uncanniness of the thing you became grabbed and also became overgrown against the aluminum fence, the uncanniness of knowing that being an adornment is also a way of being adorned. that there is no real shame in wanting to be in someone's hands. I'm trying to explain how it happens, that the very essence of a she is an intentional kind of going missing. Yeah. I think in a lot of ways, I talked about this book as exploring grief. It also explores, I think, the way that women, particularly poor Black migrant women and their descendants, the ways that they're allowed to be women and to exist in the world. Yeah, and because there is sort of no like resolution for that, the poems don't resolve at the end. They just sort of leave you in that space because that's the truth. That's true. That's the true space. Okay, this is the last poem that I'm going to read from Amphibian, and then we will get into the free writes. So this poem is called Junk Science, and there's a dedication. It's dedicated to Jessica's Uncle Junior. May he rest in peace. Junk Science. The ocean cycles. You will be a starfish someday. I am concerned with what the body does in life, how it decides. Indeed, it decides without consulting. Maybe it does, and a person doesn't listen. A man enters the ER with a lawnmower blade stuck in his head. They don't remove it. The gray matter is already operating under its new condition. Some injuries hold shit together. My great uncle presses my fingers into the side of his thigh. I feel the edges of a war artifact inside him. He touches the shrapnel as his memory quietly packs itself away. There are several people around me losing their memory. How merciful. Enough already. I know what is slipping from their minds. Better, they forget. My great-grandmother spent her life surviving on the dirt's possibilities. Garden of greens, chamomile, honey, garlic for pink eye. Call me bruja. In a dream, I walk into the yellow house I grew up in, see my great-grandmother, knees together, heels apart, her body a curl of ink in yellow Chico slacks. La Lupe is on the television, slapping her own face. Mandingo coño. My great-grandmother copies her movements. I realize I am watching an 80-year-old woman, not a 15-year-old girl. Watching her, I know that some joy is small, strange, erotic, mostly private. Okay. It's the last poem from this. I wanted to share those poems and also show you sort of what the different poems in Amphibian look like as a reminder of all the things that are possible in poetry. I feel like every time I read Jessica's writing, I'm reminded of something else that poems can do. And so if you've never heard poems like that before or seen poems like that before, I wanted this to be sort of like an invitation for you as well. So I definitely recommend Amphibian. The link to purchase Amphibian is also in the YouTube description box, and it's on the Google Doc. So if you liked those poems, you can grab the book for yourself. And Jessie also has a website where some of her work is published, as well as a Twitter. And all that information is in the description box and the Google Doc. So please check that out if you enjoyed those poems. Alan, I would love to invite you to hear any thoughts that you had on hearing those poems, if that feels okay.
Of course. I was taking down notes as you were reading, even though I have the book in my shelf. Oh, wow. I haven't gotten through the book yet, and hearing you read it out loud is making me think so much about the ways in which we recognize other people's humanity, like when they're no longer here. Particularly the first poem you read, when the poet writes, like, people testified for your generosity. And then she says something along the lines of, like, one that which they never gave back to you, right? And I think that in this moment, in the world, is exactly how what I'm thinking about and how I'm moving. And with all the riots happening, and with the leadership of Black trans women, that's also like a very similar sentiment, right? Of like all the generosity that is being put out is never being reciprocated, and it's definitely making me think about that. Also making me think about silence. Even though like poetry is about voicing, right? There's a lot about silence in the 3 poems that you read. And yeah, thank you for bringing that into the space.
Yeah, I really appreciate everything that you just said right now. Yeah. I think about that a lot. That line, like, people testified to your generosity, which they never returned. It makes me think about one of the poems that I think it was Sarah shared from the first workshop we did on tenderness. And Sarah was talking about that their practice of tenderness was setting boundaries, that they would only give to other people from what they had in excess of. And I was thinking like how important that is, to not overextend yourself, because everything in the world, especially if you are a Black person who's a gender marginalized person, like how often the world encourages you to share from things that you should keep for yourself. Yeah. That's a lot. We're full circle right now.
We really are.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go ahead and get into some free writing. So I should screen share. Okay. I think I can make this a little bit bigger, so I'm going to try to do that. Oh, you know what? So I learned something that y'all could do on Google Docs earlier. And now I don't know if I can figure out how to show you. Okay. Yup. I definitely should have stopped doing that. Okay, let me see if I can. All right, so we are on Guided Free Writes workshop number 3. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, perfect. If you are, so this Google Doc is, I think you can only view it. I don't think you can edit it or comment on it. So if you would like to do that, you can, if you have the Google Doc open on your own computer, you can go up to the left where it says File. And then from File, you can scroll down and there's an option to make a copy. And that will allow you to open a separate document. It just copies and pastes what's already on this document into a document of your own, so you can edit it if you want to just write in there. You can also, from the File menu, you can open this document in Microsoft Word, and you can just edit it from there if that feels useful to you. So I just wanted to let y'all know about that. I would have showed you how to do that, but as soon as I went full screen, I don't know where the File button went. So here we are. So let's go ahead and get into things. I'll give you a minute to open this Google Doc in whatever format feels good to you. And I'll talk to you about ghost lines. I don't remember who the first person was that talked to me about ghost lines. Oh, someone asked, how do they get the Google Doc? The link to view the Google Doc is in the YouTube description box. And I think Alon shared it in the chat earlier. So if you just go right below the video on YouTube, you should be able to click the Google Doc link from there. And Alon just shared the link again in the chat, so you can click on it from the chat as well. Okay. Ghost lines. I don't remember who the first person was that told me about ghost lines. I'm sure that I heard about them in some type of like performance poetry workshop space. Excuse me. And so the idea of a ghost line is that it's a line from someone else's poem or someone else's piece of writing that you use to start your own poem. So all of the ghost lines for today's workshop come from Amphibian. So all of these are lines from this book, which is also cool. If you get the book, then you can see how those lines show up in the book and how they're different from what you created. So with a ghost line, for example, ghost line number 1 is, did you come here looking for ... and then you fill in the blank. So one thing you could do is that you could start your poem with this line, just finish the line and then continue writing. Or you could have it at the top of your poem, finish the line, and then when you read your poem later, you take this line out. If you keep it in, then you should give credit to Jessica Lene, who's the writer of this ghost line. But if you take it out, then it just sort of serves as inspiration for your piece. So we are going to use ghost lines to free write today. And the idea here is to keep your pen moving at all times. I just dropped my pen on the floor. So I was trying to demonstrate someone just asked, is this similar to the golden shovel method? I think that there's maybe some similarities, but the golden shovel is a much more structured form. And this one right here is very much open-ended. You're not trying to like replicate something in the way that you are if you are writing a golden shovel poem. So all you need to know for today's workshop, you're going to need something to write on and something to write with. So if you have your notebook, your Word document, your Google Doc, you're good to go. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to ask you to start writing using the first ghost line as the first line of your poem. So whatever piece of writing you start, your first line is going to be, did you come here looking for? And then you finish the line and keep writing. After a couple of minutes or so, I will let you know what your next ghost line is, right? Which right here is number 2, Of Course You Wanted the Sky. And it'll be your choice to either incorporate the next ghost line into what you're already writing or to just start something new. So if you really liked where you were going with ghost line number 1, just incorporate ghost line number 2 into what you're already writing. If you felt like what you were writing for ghost line number 1 wasn't really getting you anywhere, go ahead and start something new. So I'll leave it up to you what you decide to do with that. After we've done 5 ghost lines, we'll take a break. We'll check in, see how that felt, and then we'll go from there. Are there any questions about that process? I'm going to grab my pen right now. If any questions come up for you about, if you get confused, if you don't know which ghost line we're on, just let us know in the chat and we'll come back for you, I promise. Otherwise, would love to just go ahead and get into it. So ghost line number 1 is, did you come here looking for? And just fill in the blank. And keep your pen moving the entire time too. I don't want you to feel like you have to stop and edit yourself. Yeah, this exercise is mostly about like getting your creative juices flowing. So don't feel like you have to write a masterpiece right now. Just get in the practice. So keep your pen moving. We'll check in a few minutes. Okay, go ahead and move on. Your next ghost line is, of course you wanted the sky. Go ahead and move on to your next ghost line. The next ghost line is, I spit and make a river. Okay, try your next ghost line. I cannot speak of myself without speaking of.
I'm a suppository of information. Go ahead and do your last ghost line. And move the water, but. Okay, go ahead and come to a stopping point. Finish up your last line, your last thought. And if you could let us know in the chat, I'm very curious to know what that felt like for y'all. How was that process of free writing, using those ghost lines and being asked to fold them into your writing as you were going? How was that for y'all? Alan, can you speak to how that experience was for you?
I am shocked. They were really like effective. I was able to poorly scribble 2 pages, and I didn't think I would be writing that much to each line, and things just kind of like vomited out of my digits.
Wow, I'm so glad to hear that. And like, how did you feel too about like the writing that you actually did? Do you feel like it was like, because sometimes like when people do this, they write a lot, but it doesn't make any sense, you know, or it's like there are thoughts here and there that pop up, but it doesn't feel quite cohesive. So how was that for you?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely like a rupture at some point in the writing, but it's okay, because I feel like I actually have something to expand from this. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yay. That's really exciting. Oh, and I'm starting to see, I think everyone's comments just popped up all at once. I guess everyone was typing and then hit enter at the same time. Oh, wow. It looks like overall people had really positive experiences with this. Yeah, it's taking me a minute to read everything. It sounds like folks produced a lot more writing than they thought they were going to make, which is just really exciting too, I feel like, especially if you've been having a hard time writing these last couple of months. I see that some folks ended up not being able to make one long piece, but like small separate pieces of writing, which is still helpful, right? It's still you practicing your writing process. Oh wow, and some people really like the specific ghost lines that were chosen. So, you know, I did my best, but Jessica did most of the work with that. Oh, I'm super happy. Okay, yeah, I'm super glad. It sounds like overall this was a very useful exercise for you all. So I just wanted to check in right now and see how that was for y'all, and also to ask, yeah, y'all have an option right now, so you can let us know in the chat what you prefer. We can either right now do a little bit of a break and go into and allow a few folks to share what they just produced, or we can go back into more ghost lines, because I have a second round of ghost lines, but I didn't want to have a workshop where I asked you to write for the entire like hour. So if you want to take a break and hear from a few people, hear what they wrote during this exercise, we can do that. Or we can just go right back into writing. If you felt like, oh, I'm in a place I can write now and I want to keep writing, we can also do that. So let us know what your preference is in the chat. Do you want to hear from a few folks, or do you want to keep doing ghost lines? And maybe while folks are answering that, ooh, this is exciting. Maybe just while folks are answering that question right now in the chat and thinking about what they want to do next, Alan, would you be down to maybe share a little piece of what you wrote?
Oh, yeah, I can share. I've never written about my father. One, because I have no idea who that man is. I mean, I know who it is, but like we don't know each other. But I'll read maybe the first stanza. Did you come here looking for a father? Was your village not enough? Did the grasshoppers not nurture your body, hold your hunger days at a time? Dearest child, were the woman not more than what a father gives? Did you come here looking for a father, or did you come here looking for answers about your presupposed masculinity as you learn to betray it, remove the violence from your throat? Of course you wanted the sky. We fantasize the power of men so often that we make of men what we do not make of other humans. Dearest child, of course you wanted the sky. In our language, we are not Zapotec, we are Labena, the people of the clouds. Of course you wanted to exit this world and reclaim the sky as home, the sky as promise, the sky as the hold you've always dreamed a father would perform for you.
Wow. One of the things I really enjoyed hearing about your piece, like just writing wise, was the repetition of the ghost lines and how they came back and sort of slightly changed in order to propel like the momentum of the poem forward. That was really exciting. Yeah, that was really exciting to hear. And it's also cool because there wasn't a lot of time between each ghost line. So I'm also just impressed that you had the time to do that before moving on to the next one.
Yeah, like I said, it felt like vomit. You know how you can't stop vomit? It just comes out? That's what it felt like.
Goodness, it's really funny. But sometimes writing feels that way, right? Especially if it's something that you've been thinking about or has been in the back of your mind, but you haven't like made time to sit with or to write about. When you do get a chance to write, it all comes out at once. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Alan. I thought that was great.
Of course, thank you. So if any of you want to share, please send us a DM on Instagram. I'm about to log in and send you all the link.
And for those of you who really enjoyed this ghost line free writing activity, obviously it's a thing that's easier to do if you have someone who is guiding you through the ghost lines and telling you when to move on to the next one. But it's also something you could do on your own. If you have a timer you can set on your phone or even on your computer, you can Google like stopwatch or timer and find like a website that'll allow you to do that. And you can set a timer for like every 2 minutes or every 3 minutes or something like that. All you have to do is to have a book that you like. It doesn't even have to be a book that you like, honestly. It helps if it is, though, I think. But you can just pick up a book off your bookshelf and grab some lines from it, put them all in one list and set a timer for every 2 to 3 minutes and just write and give yourself that space. That way you get out of your head a little bit and you get to try something new and sort of refresh your practice. So it is something you can do on your own as well. And like, go ahead. I was just going to say, like Alan said, if you want to share even just a little piece of what you wrote just now, send us a DM on Instagram at Write With Us Live. That way Alan knows to add you to the chat.
So far, it doesn't sound like we haven't gotten any messages. So I'm wondering if we should give it one more minute, or we'll give it one more minute and then we'll, I guess, move on. And then if y'all do send messages, we'll definitely bring you in after the next exercise.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, we're gonna bring in someone. Give me 1 sec.
Okay, I'm waiting for Cristina Figueroa Castro to pop up in her little thingy. Hello.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, this is really weird. I hope it's all okay and the light's okay. I've been here for the last 2 sessions as well, and I just want to say thank you to both of you, and to everyone joining, because this has been a really special and kind of healing experience. I've not been able to write with people in a long time, and you've just made a really safe space. Even online, it just feels like a really lovely place, and I've not had a chance to write with a bunch of Latinos as well. And both sessions, I've just been crying, because when everyone shares things, you're all just so talented, and my heart feels very full. So I just want to say thanks to everyone for sharing and being so brave and lovely. So gracias, queridos. But yes, I'm Christina. I'm from the Bay Area. I live in Brighton now in the UK. So it's evening here. But yeah, I just wanted to share my little bit that I wrote. And I tried to write kind of one cohesive thing. So yeah, if that's cool, I'll go. Nervous. Did you come here looking for a way into yourself? There are holes that are meant to be filled, others to be left empty, and others still to be a portal. There isn't a way to tell which is which until we walk into a wall, or brick ourselves up and find ourselves suffocating, or falling through to who knows what. The digging, the building, the unmaking, the exploring is all there is. Of course you wanted the sky, because that great openness is a mirror. The great wide expanse of your heart is as boundless as the daylight, as the night lights, as deep as space. You can't fill it. I spit and make a river. I blink and make a sunset, then a swift sunrise. I bleed and make a life. I cry and make a sea. I cannot speak of myself without speaking of it all. You and I are the same universe, trying to understand itself, trying to find the end of its own sky. The event horizon of your eye being the only part that marks a line between you and not you. I am mostly water, but I am also sky. The soaring in my chest, even when my feet are on the grass. The way my hairs on my arms stand when I hear something true that reminds me that we all want nothing more than to rise up.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm kind of shocked that you wrote so much.
Sorry.
And it really goes so, I mean, all of them go so well together. I think that hearing you read out loud, I realized how much of like the ecological world was in the original Ghost Lines, and how
Yeah.
well you carried that through and thought with the world and not necessarily from the individual perspective of the I. So wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely felt that listening to you read as well. I also feel like there was such momentum in your piece, and I wonder too if that had to do with the way that you wrote it. Particularly, I think around the section where the ghost line is "I spit and make a river," and you repeated that sentence structure a few different times, but changed the words, right? Or like change the
Yeah.
actions that are happening there and the relationship between the person doing the thing and, like Alan said, the ecological world. That was really exciting to hear that same sentence structure but with slight changes every time. It builds momentum when you're hearing the poem, so that was also just, it was really exciting. It felt really like embodied, and I felt that as you were reading it. Yeah, that
Thank
was
you so
great.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, they were a really good choice of ghost lines. When I was looking at them just before the session started, just seeing the Google document, I was like, what am I going to do with that? I wasn't quite sure. And then when I was writing, it just kind of went like vomit, like Alan said. It was just like blah. And yeah, I was surprised at what I came up with, but the prompts were really, really helpful. So it was really good. So thank you.
Word. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your piece.
Yes, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Yay! Messages like came in, so we're bringing one more person in, and then we'll see. I'll respond to the other messages. This is a really fantastic exercise, Ariana.
I'm so glad it went so well. I've never taught this workshop before, so I was like, I hope they like it and they don't hate it.
Okay, let me. Hello. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. My name's Kevin. Sorry about the mess.
Hello. Would you like to introduce
Oh,
yourself?
sorry. Hold on. My name. My bad. Sorry. Hi. Yeah. So my name's Kevin. I'm in Florida right now. I just want to say thank you for doing this writing workshop. Like, I was at the last two, and it's just been super helpful for me. Like having like a set time every week to like sit down and write has just been really cool. And I love both of y'all's work, and I love that you're also using this this space to amplify the work of other poets. So thank you so much for everything. But yeah, I don't know. Do I share now or?
Yes, please. We would love to hear your piece.
Okay, so I'll share from like the first three ghost lines. Did you come here looking for rest, for comfort? What treasures are you in need of? What do you have to offer? What do you desire? What crystal dreams stand tall in your mind? What futures beam down on you? What did your mother and her mother sacrifice for you? What are you willing to sacrifice? Of course you wanted the sky, its light hitting your eyes wide open. You were told with enough hard work you could get there. It'd be just you, and you'd have to leave lots behind. I spit and make a river. We learn to work with what we have. In this family, sacrifice is as common as dirt, and we make do. And the last two, I was just like, oh, they came out kind of awkward. But yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wrote down so many lines that you just shared with us because I thought they were really great. Yeah, like I really liked your section with all of the questions, right? Because the first ghost line begins with a question, right? Did you come here looking for, and then you fill in the blank, and then you also added like, what do you have to offer? What are you willing to sacrifice? And like, what has been sacrificed for you? Like something along those lines. And I really appreciated those questions because I feel like they also focus on the relationships between people. And they're very direct and clear, which is partly because of the ghost lines and also partly because of what you brought to the ghost lines. So I thought you did a really great job of expanding on that directness of those questions and being really clear in what you mean with that. And I also really appreciated you talking about sacrifice being as common as dirt in this family. I think is a thing that a lot of people can relate to. And I really appreciated hearing about So yeah, thank you.
Alrighty.
Yes, I mean, similarly, just like your piece is very much about a community, right? About people's quality of life. And you're asking us to reflect, which is, I think, sometimes what poetry does, but not always. So thank you for asking us to do that.
Alrighty, well, thank y'all. And I was just trying to think about, yeah, like that, and then like moving it to how we connect with people. But anyway, I'm sorry. Alrighty, thank y'all so much.
Yeah, thank you. That came through really clear. It was great to hear you. Thank you.
Bye.
Yes, thank you so much. Bye. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. We have a few people that on the Instagram, they sent like a stanza. And I asked two folk and they are down with us sharing it. I'm going to read a stanza from Mary. So when you reached up, looking as if you would find the sense of heaven between your fingers, I thought you would lift from the ground, just floating upwards as you kept grasping, pulling at the unseen seams of the sky. I thought you would make it clear that it was possible to leave from sheer will.
Wow. I feel like the thing that keeps coming up for me is really appreciating the directness of people's lines. I know like sometimes the thing that comes up when you're asked to free write is that things feel very vague and like general. And I'm really appreciating that people really went for very intentional, very clear, very direct, like lines of thought. This is exactly what I mean, you know? I thought that was great. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, like you said, the ghost lines are just so precise, and I think that the ghost lines are given direction. Um, they're grounded in something that we know, we understand, we see. Okay, and then I'm going to read a stanza from another poet writer who's been joining us. Give me one sec. Okay. So I believe that this is from Mel, and I'm going to read the stanza. I cannot speak of myself without speaking of my lineage, my heritage, the inheritance kept secret to mind, the colony, the bondage of my agency, the widespread encouragement to love on everyone itself.
There was a line, it just happened so quick that I was like, it took me a second to process it. And after, like 2 lines later, I was like, wow, at that line. I think it was, I cannot, something about like, my heritage kept secret to mind the colony. Can you read that line again?
My heritage, the inheritance kept secret to mind the colony.
There's something about the precision about the way that's described that I really appreciate. It's so like spot on, right on the nose. I don't know what the phrase is. That's it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's definitely very diasporic, and yeah, what happens when your culture, your people's way is kept secret. I think that I definitely resonate as a migrant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We did get a few more messages, but I think that you can continue with the next one, and then I'll reply to the messages so that we can prep them for the next round.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. So we also have an option. So we're gonna get back into writing because I want to have a few more chances to write. And we'll probably have to do like limited sharing at the end since we already had time to share during this workshop. So we're playing around with the new structure, just trying to figure out what works best. If we could go, Alan, if you could add my screen, I just want to screen share so people can see the doc. Thank you. Okay, so if you can let us know in the chat if you want to go into a second round of ghost lines or you want to try a writing prompt. So the second round of ghost lines works the same way as the first one. It's again lines from Amphibian by Jessica Linne. Or there's a writing prompt at the end that is not quite free writing, but basically it asks you to choose one of the ghost lines from the Google Doc and to write a new poem where you repeat that ghost line throughout the poem, but make sure it has a different ending each time. So it's playing again with that idea of directness and momentum that we've been building on earlier in the workshop. So we can either do second round of ghost lines or this writing prompt. Another option, yeah. So we can do either of those things. So let us know in the chat. Would you prefer to do more ghost lines, or do you want to do the additional writing prompt? So far, people are saying ghost lines, but make your voice heard. Let us know in the chat what you would like. Okay, it looks so far overwhelmingly like people would like to do ghost lines, which is cool because we can do ghost lines during this workshop. And then if you want to try that writing prompt later on your own, then you can do that as well now that you have the prompt. All right. Let's see. So let's do some ghost lines. All right. Yeah, and let's think of this as maybe a separate piece from whatever you were writing before. So this is a totally new thought or a different way of approaching the topic you wrote about the first time. So let's try your first ghost line this round is think of the body as, fill in the blank, think of the body as. So start your next piece of writing with that line. I'm going to move on to your next ghost line. Your next ghost line is, I know you are familiar with. Okay, your next ghost line is by the time you read this. Try your next ghost line. The next ghost line is, it is more difficult than you think.
PVP, polyethylene glycol, hooves, animal skin, sheep's wool, parrot.
Okay, try the next ghost line. What is it called when? Okay, come to a stopping point. Finish your last line, your last thoughts. Okay, would love to know how that was for y'all this time around, second time around. How was it for you, Alan?
These 5 ghost lines kind of had me think through. I almost took each ghost line as a different piece, so I feel like I generated 5 thoughts. As opposed to the first time, it felt like I generated a more cohesive piece. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. That's really exciting too, because like those are thoughts that you could potentially expand on, you know? I don't know. One of the things that I really like about this, about doing Ghostline free writes in this way, is that like I feel like it emphasizes the writing process over like the final product, which was the point of this workshop. It was supposed to be low stakes. It was not about creating like this very polished kind of like well edited piece. It was about getting you back to your writing process. What naturally and instinctively comes up for you when you sit down to write, if you just let it happen. I feel like so many of us, we get so used to editing ourselves as we go because we're trying to make the perfect poem or the perfect piece of writing, that sometimes we end up blocking what would naturally come out of us. So that's really exciting too. And sometimes what naturally comes out of you is not like the finished piece, but is important on getting you on the way to that thing. Yeah. So I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad that folks. It seems like folks in the chat, a few folks had the same experience as you, Alan. Someone said they went through a whole cycle of life. That's a lot, you know, the power of poetry, the power that has. A lot more emotional, interesting. I hope you were able to hold yourself through that. Okay, I'm glad you were able to try and make it into one piece. I feel like these kinds of prompts also resist like the idea of creating a linear poem where you're telling a linear story. You know, this happened, then this, then that. It's very much about like what just comes up, what naturally, organically shows up. Okay, we are coming close to time. I think we have maybe time for like 1 or 2 people to share, and then we can start closing it. How do you feel, Alan?
good. Yeah, we do have one person who is waiting. But give me a sec. Yes. So they're about to come in.
Okay, perfect. I'm excited.
Okay, yeah, they're in. Let me bring them up. Hold on.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
I think you're on mute.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you a little bit.
Okay, I'll just speak really loud. Is it okay? Cool. So should I just... Yeah, I'm sorry. My name is Salvador. I'm a grad student at UCLA, but I'm back home in Chicago right now. I'm actually going to be teaching an intro to creative writing course in the fall, so I'm already learning so much. So thank you for organizing all of this and creating this space. I already feel like there's such a great community here. So should I just read what I have? Cool. Think of the body as a vessel for feeling, a vat for the karma of you, a test tube for the decisions you make and the experiments life decides to play. I know you are familiar with science, the study of the things we can see, but what about the affects that go beyond perception, the trauma that won't register under electron microscopes? By the time you read this, I won't be the same. Change is the only constant, and I am constantly plotting my escape from the glass walls of observation. It is more difficult than you think to undergo metamorphoses, from a soul to a body, from a butterfly to a dream. What is it called when your avatar in the mirror looks like the end result of a broken chrysalis? Thank you.
Thank you. I really enjoyed hearing your piece, especially when you got to this part in the poem. I feel like that was sort of talking about like the rift between science and what it can measure and understand versus like feeling and lived experience. How like science doesn't really have a way to measure that or even really conceive of it. Yeah, I thought that was great. And you also had when you were talking about the metamorphoses from a butterfly to a dream, I just thought, wow, what a beautiful way to phrase that. I've never heard a line like that before. So that was like surprising and really cool to hear. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Oh my gosh. Were you saying something? Sorry.
No, sorry.
Okay. Seems like, for me at least, and with the things that I wrote down from your piece, it seems like you're also playing with this idea of escape and betrayal, and kind of like a different form of movement, right? Not a transformation, but a transporting yourself somewhere else that I thought was really interesting. And I think that the way that you're writing actually mimics the method of the prompts in a way that was really interesting, where Ariana was like, okay, move on to the next one. And you kind of did move on to think of a new way in which to escape another route. So I appreciated that. Yeah, I know you wanted to share the first one, but do you want to talk a little bit about the difference between the first one and the second one? Kind of.
Yeah. The first one, like a lot of people, I think, I found myself sort of charged by the memories that all of the lines were evoking. And then in the second round, I think I sort of limited myself by the theme of science that I picked up really early on. So as each line was coming on, I was like, okay, how do I kind of fit this into some sort of framework of science or show that like it just doesn't fit?
Yeah, I feel like that came through really clearly too, like that intentionality that you put behind it. That was just a really cool like experiment to see what the end result of that was. So yeah, thank you for participating and thinking about it in that way. It was really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you soon. Okay, we have one more person. Hello, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
Hi, I'm Hasmine. My name on the chat appears as Jasmine Santa Cruz. That's my government name. So it's my first time joining you all for one of these. I'm very excited. I feel like I've always been very hesitant to call myself like a writer or a poet, and I've never really shared anything, so I'm excited. So I'll just go ahead and start. Think of the body as your own personal canvas, housing scars and traumas, etching images in ink to tell your story. Love on yourself every time you are told not to, every time your ama tells you otherwise. Think of your body and all its wonders and strengths. I know you are familiar with pain. Invite yourself into that pain. What is your body teaching you? How has your body carried you through it all? The joy, the pain, the pleasure of it all. Honor your resilient body. Become familiar with all its strength and beauty so that by the time you read this again, weeks from now, years from now, your body will know love more than pain. Your trauma will be a line in the story of your journey. By the time you read this aloud, your body will be a novel. It is more difficult than you think to remain in one place. Move, stretch, reach out for more. Reach out for a loving embrace, one that you know your queer body deserves. So what is it called when you embrace your full self? In all your truths, in all your weirdness and queerness. It is love in these times of resistance. It is strength amidst all your false senses of weakness. That was it.
Thank you for sharing that. At first, witness, it feels like instructions for the future. A form of envisioning that is acknowledging the present, but also very much aware of how your body will take you to the future, and not necessarily other people, but like trusting your body and listening to those lessons. Yeah.
Thanks.
It also makes me think, yeah, I definitely feel everything you were saying, Alan, about the instructions. I was really like latching on to those because they felt so caring and intentional again. And I thought it was really cool to hear how the different instructions built up to the line by the time you read this aloud, because it was also like envisioning the future, and then we sort of see the future happen in the poem. That was just like a whoa moment for me. That was so cool. Yeah, how you did that, because it's also like it almost feels like a spell, like a spell for manifesting something, and then getting to see how that moved, how time moved in the poem was really, really cool. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and just to add, I think that in the literary world, we talk a lot about speculative fiction, but we don't talk enough about speculative nonfiction. And this feels speculative nonfiction. So thank you for like bringing that into the space as well. But yeah, I know we're also coming to an end, so I just want to thank you one more time. And yeah, we're about to like close it up, I think.
Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ariana, see if you
Yeah, that was so great. I also feel like we got more people to share in this workshop than we have in the last few. So that was like really exciting to hear from different folks at different points in the writing process. And if you did share, please take a look at the YouTube comments and like the chat, because people are giving a lot of love for all of the poems that were shared today. If you didn't get a chance to share, but you still would like for us to see what you wrote, please send us a DM on Instagram with the piece or pieces that you wrote during the workshop today. We would still love to see them and love to share them with everyone else who participated. Even if you did share and you just, yeah, we would love to see the written version of what you wrote, and we'll post it on our Instagram. So please send us a DM if you would like to do that. Just real quick, last things. We are, I mentioned it at the beginning of the workshop, but Alana and I are taking donations for our time and labor that went into putting this workshop series and into sustaining it. We will be here every Sunday till the end of July. So there are 8 workshops in the series. At the end of each workshop, the videos are archived on YouTube, so you can access them at any time. If you showed up late today and you missed the first half and you want to see what it was about, or you want to hear me read those poems again, you can always go back and watch this video. The poems I read today and all of the ghost lines came from this book, Amphibian by Jessica Laney, which I highly recommend. It also explores, I didn't mention it, but it also explores themes of science and feeling and experimentation. There's a lot of really great like Afro-Caribbean history, like history of poor Black women, and how those things sort of affect the present of the writer. So I highly recommend that book, and you can find that at the link in the YouTube description box and on the Google Doc. I think that is everything, unless Alan, you maybe want to talk real quick about next week's workshop.
Yeah, so next week we're going to be doing visual poetics, which is slightly different than the last 3 weeks. If you know my work, you know that I incorporate visuality a lot, particularly because I'm the only one in my family who knows how to read or write. So the visual world is super important for me to be able to create lines of affinities with my family. So I asked that if you are going to come next week to kind of like maybe prepare 1 or 2 of your favorite photographs, because we're going to be working with photos, as well as I'll be teaching you a few things on Google Docs and Canva in which to incorporate into your toolkit for poetry. So like Ariana said, we're super happy to host this space for y'all. If you know anybody who would benefit from this space, please let them know that we're here. Send them the first 3 sessions, and definitely get Jessica Lemay's book. And like we said, follow us on the Instagram at Write With Us Live, where we'll update the series each week, and we'll also share some of your poems. A few of you actually sent me the poems you wrote on the first free write, so I'll DM you to ask for approval to post them on our feed, and look out for that. And like Ariana said, we're Ariana the Poet and Migrant Scribble on Instagram, Twitter, Cash App, Venmo. So just like follow us and reach out if you have questions about like the workshop and accessibility. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next Sunday.
See you next
Bye,
Sunday.
y'all.